when the waitress whispered, "It's your daughter. She's not waking up." Silence swallowed the billionaire's world. For a man who controlled everything, this was the one moment he was powerless, and everyone would see it. The dinner rush had been relentless. Plates clattered, glasses chimed, voices rose in overlapping demands. Amelia's feet throbbed in her cheap black flats. Her back ached from carrying trays heavier than she'd ever admit, and yet her face wore the same polite half-smile she'd perfected over years of invisibility. To most customers, she wasn't Amelia. She was just the waitress. The one who refilled water, wiped up spills, took complaints with bowed shoulders and a forced kindness. But beneath the surface, Amelia carried her own world of aches. Dreams deferred, bills stacked, memories of loss she rarely let herself revisit. She had grown skilled at hiding exhaustion behind a steady voice, at swallowing the sting of being underestimated. Tonight, though, she noticed someone different at table 17. A girl, teenage, pale, dressed in clothes that looked too expensive for this mid-range restaurant. She pushed food around her plate, eyes glassy, shoulders drooping as if carrying a weight invisible to the rest of the room. Amelia's instincts, sharp from years of watching people, stirred. Still, she kept working. Invisible. Across the city, on the 42nd floor of a tower lined with glass and steel, Adrian Cole studied a report on quarterly earnings. Numbers, percentages, profit margins, the language of control. Control had been his currency for decades, and he spent it ruthlessly. His office was silent except for the hum of air conditioning and the ticking of a luxury clock. But silence wasn't peace. It was emptiness. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the glittering city, a kingdom he owned yet never felt at home in. A framed photograph sat on his desk. His daughter, Lily, smiling weakly at the camera on her 12th birthday. She was 15 now, but that was the last time he remembered her truly smiling. Since her mother's death, she had become a shadow, drifting through their mansion like a ghost. He had tried tutors, therapists, even boarding schools, but nothing reached her. And truthfully, he hadn't tried hard enough. Adrian adjusted his tie and returned to the numbers. Control. That was what he understood. Back in the restaurant, Amelia's shift neared its end when she heard a sudden sound. Sharp. Heavy. Unnatural. A chair scraped violently. A glass toppled. She turned just in time to see the pale girl from table 17 crumple forward, her body hitting the floor with a dull thud. The dining room froze. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. For one breathless moment, no one moved. "Call 911, Amelia shouted, rushing forward. She knelt beside the girl, Lily, though Amelia didn't know her name yet, and tried to shake her gently. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" No response. Her skin was clammy, her pulse faint. Fear surged in Amelia's chest, but training from a long-ago CPR course kicked in. She checked breathing, tilted the girl's head slightly, kept her steady. Around her, customers murmured, some backing away, others recording with their phones. Typical. Her manager stammered uselessly about liability and lawyers. Amelia tuned him out. She grabbed the girl's phone, lying on the floor beside her spilled purse. The screen lit up with a background photo. The same man Amelia had seen once or twice in magazines. The CEO. Her hands shook as she scrolled, found the dad contact, and pressed call. On the 42nd floor, Adrian's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something, intuition, dread, made him swipe to answer. "Hello?" His voice was clipped, controlled. Silence. Then a trembling female voice. "Sir, your daughter. She's unconscious. Where at?" The words blurred. For a man who thrived on precision, clarity, and facts, this was chaos. His mind emptied. His chest tightened.
"What did you say?" His voice was sharper, louder now. "Who is this?"
"A waitress, Amelia. Your daughter collapsed in the restaurant. She's not waking up. The ambulance is on the way." For the first time in years, Adrian Cole forgot about reports, numbers, and the empire he commanded. He was just a father, a terrified, powerless father. He shoved back his chair, grabbed his keys, and barked to his assistant, "Cancel everything, now." Amelia lowered the phone, heart pounding. Around her, paramedics pushed through the crowd. She stepped back but stayed close enough to answer questions, to whisper reassurances that the girl couldn't hear. She had no reason to stay. Her shift was over, her work done. But something rooted her there. Maybe it was the image of the girl's lifeless face. Maybe it was the sound of the man's voice breaking on the phone. She didn't know then that the call she made would shatter 2 lives and bind them together in ways she could never have imagined. If you were Amelia, the waitress who could have stayed invisible, would you have risked stepping in, or would you have waited for someone else? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. The restaurant was still buzzing with unsettled whispers when the paramedics lifted Lily onto a stretcher. Amelia stood nearby, wringing her hands, trying to stay invisible, yet unwilling to leave. Her apron still bore the stain of spilled soda from another table, but no one saw that. All eyes were on the unconscious girl with porcelain skin and designer sneakers. The air shifted abruptly, heads turned toward the door. And then he entered. He didn't just walk into the restaurant, he commanded it. A tailored charcoal suit framed his tall figure, his jaw clenched, his eyes sharp like blades. Everyone knew his face, even those who pretended they didn't. Billionaire, CEO, power incarnate. But tonight he wasn't any of those things. Tonight, his mask cracked.
"Where is she?"
His voice cut through the din like glass shattering. Amelia stepped forward without realizing. "Here, over here." Their eyes met for the first time, hers wide, anxious, uncertain, his furious, desperate, disbelieving. For a moment she thought he might shove her aside, but then his gaze fell to the stretcher, and the world dropped out from under him. Adrian's hands trembled as he brushed his daughter's limp hair away from her forehead. Her skin was cold. Her lips were pale. He was used to boardrooms, contracts, billion-dollar deals, but none of that mattered when faced with his daughter's stillness. "Lily," he whispered, voice cracking. "Baby girl, wake up." The paramedic spoke briskly. "We've got her stable, taking her to St. Vincent's now." Adrian nodded, jaw tight, but his eyes betrayed him. They glistened. The man who never cried, who couldn't remember the last time he had, was breaking in front of strangers. And one stranger in particular. The waitress. Amelia lingered, torn between retreating back into anonymity and staying rooted by something she didn't understand. She had seen parents rush into restaurants before, angry, entitled, demanding. But this was different. The billionaire's voice thundered, but beneath the thunder was terror. She swallowed hard. I'm the one who called you." His head snapped toward her. "You." The word dripped with disbelief, and something else, raw suspicion. "Yes, she collapsed. I just—" Amelia's voice faltered. Her throat tightened under his piercing stare. "I didn't know what else to do." For a second, silence roared louder than the chatter of the restaurant. He studied her, as if trying to decide whether she was a savior or an intruder. Finally, he said, "Thank you." The words sounded foreign on his tongue, like they'd been dragged from somewhere deep and unused. Amelia's breath caught. She hadn't expected gratitude. Not from him. The paramedics wheeled Lily toward the ambulance. Adrian moved with them, refusing to let go of her hand. At the last second, his gaze flicked back to Amelia. "You. Come with us." The command shocked her. "Me?" "She knows you," Adrian snapped. "She trusted you enough to collapse here, in front of you. You stay." It wasn't a request. It was desperation, wrapped in authority. Amelia hesitated, glancing at her manager, who shrugged, already more worried about liability forms than humanity. So she went. She climbed into the ambulance, sitting awkwardly in the corner, knees pressed together, apron still on. Adrian sat beside Lily, gripping her hand with white knuckles. The siren wailed. The city lights blurred past. For the first time since she'd dialed that number, Amelia realized what she had stepped into. Not just a crisis, a world colliding with hers. A world of glass towers and billion-dollar empires, pulling her in whether she belonged or not. In the ambulance, words hung unspoken. Amelia wanted to ask what Lily had been through, why she looked so pale, why a girl who had everything looked emptier than she did after a double shift. But she stayed silent. Adrian wanted to ask why this waitress, of all people, had been the one to hold his daughter's life in her hands. But his throat refused. His fear choked him. Instead, their eyes met once more. No words. Just raw fear reflected back at each other. And in that silent exchange, something fragile sparked. Not trust, not yet. Not connection either. But the beginning of something neither could name. The ambulance screeched to a halt outside St. Vincent's. Floodlights washed the night in sterile white. Nurses and doctors swarmed, pulling Lily into the ER. Adrian barked orders. "Careful, she needs the best doctor you have," while Amelia trailed behind, suddenly aware she didn't belong. Yet when Lily's stretcher disappeared through the swinging doors, Adrian looked back once more. His jaw clenched, his voice low. "Don't leave." 2 words. A command, or maybe a plea. Amelia couldn't tell, but she nodded anyway. And with that, their worlds were bound together. Have you ever had a single moment, a phone call, a glance, a word, that completely changed the course of your life? Share it in the comments. You never know who might relate to your story. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and faintly of burnt coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, sterile and unforgiving. Amelia sat in a corner of the waiting room, twisting her apron strings in her lap, painfully aware of how out of place she looked. Across from her, Adrian Cole stood rigid by the window, phone in hand, barking orders into the receiver. He spoke about specialists, test results, private wings, his voice sharp, controlled, cutting through the air like a blade. But Amelia heard the cracks in between. The way his voice faltered when he said Lily's name. The hesitation before he ended the call. The man was trying to armor himself in power, but fear leaked through the seams. Still, the weight of his presence pressed on her. She didn't belong here. She was just a waitress who had made a call. A nobody in a world built for people like him. Adrian finally ended the call and turned toward her. His eyes narrowed, as if studying a puzzle piece that didn't fit. "Why were you the one who called me?" His tone wasn't gratitude now. It was interrogation. Amelia's throat tightened. Because no one else was moving. She collapsed in front of me. I, I couldn't just stand there.
You touched her? Checked her pulse? His voice sharpened.
Yes. For a long moment he said nothing. His jaw worked, eyes cold but searching. Then, "You could have made it worse." The words stung. Amelia's chest heated with anger, though her voice stayed soft. "Or I could have saved her life." Silence stretched. His eyes flickered, anger, fear, something unnamed, before he turned away. "You shouldn't even be here." Amelia swallowed hard. Maybe he was right. Maybe she should leave, go home, forget she ever saw his daughter. But when she pictured the girl's pale face, she couldn't move. Hours bled together. Doctors moved in and out, murmuring updates Adrian barely heard. Amelia sat quietly, too nervous to ask questions, too stubborn to leave. At one point, Adrian dropped into the chair beside her, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. For the briefest second, he looked human, vulnerable. Amelia opened her mouth. "She's strong. She'll—" He lifted his head sharply. "You don't know her." The words sliced. Amelia bit her tongue. She had only meant comfort, but his pride rejected it. His eyes softened almost instantly, as if he regretted snapping, but he said nothing. He let silence hang heavy between them. In that silence, Amelia's insecurities gnawed at her. "He's right," she thought. "You don't know her. You don't know him. You don't belong here." She remembered her own family, her little brother, the way he'd collapsed once from an asthma attack, how powerless she had felt then, how she had pressed her ear to his chest, praying for breath. That was the night she'd promised herself. If she ever had the chance, she wouldn't freeze. She would act. That was all tonight had been. Action. Not belonging, not destiny, just a moment. So why couldn't she walk away? Adrian paced the hall like a caged lion, every muscle tense. His empire couldn't help him here. His money couldn't bribe the truth from the doctors. He hated it, hated feeling powerless. And then there was the waitress, the stranger who had inserted herself into the most fragile moment of his life. He wanted her gone, yet he couldn't bring himself to send her away. Something about her steadiness when she spoke on the phone, the way she hadn't flinched under his fury, it unsettled him. People always flinched, always bowed, but not her. Finally, exhaustion snapped his restraint. He turned on her. "Why are you still here?" Amelia lifted her eyes, meeting his stare. "Because she shouldn't wake up alone." The answer disarmed him. His chest tightened, but his pride reared. "She has me." "Does she?" The words slipped out before Amelia could stop them. The air cracked between them. Adrian's jaw clenched, his eyes darkening. For a moment, Amelia thought he might explode, but instead he looked away, his silence louder than any outburst. Amelia's own heart pounded. She hadn't meant to challenge him, but the truth had been too sharp to swallow. Through the glass, Lily lay still, machines beeping steadily beside her. Adrian pressed his palm to the glass, his reflection hovering over hers. Amelia stood a few steps back, her hands twisting. In that fragile tableau, the resistance between them hardened. Both wanted to be close to Lily, both felt the weight of her unconscious body, but they stood on opposite sides of their own walls. Neither spoke again that night. Have you ever had a moment where someone's pride or fear kept them from accepting help, even when they desperately needed it? How did you respond? Share in comments. Your story might inspire someone else. The night dragged on in a blur of footsteps, hushed voices, and the rhythmic beeping of machines. The hospital never slept. It pulsed with lives hanging in balance. For Adrian and Amelia, time became elastic, stretching, snapping, folding in on itself. By midnight, they were the only two still rooted in the family waiting area. Amelia had tried, twice, to excuse herself, to say she should go home. Each time, Adrian's terse "stay" pinned her back to her seat. She told herself it was Lily's fragile figure behind that glass that held her here. But the truth was more complicated. Adrian sat stiff in a chair, jacket folded neatly over one armrest. His tie hung loose, his posture less regal than before. He looked tired, human. Amelia sat opposite, shoulders slouched, her apron now folded on her lap. She rubbed at the soreness in her feet, acutely aware of her cheap shoes squeaking against the sterile floor. Silence weighed on them. Not hostile silence, just heavy, awkward, thick with unspoken words neither dared to release. Finally, Adrian broke it. His voice was low, gravelly. "She spoke to you before it happened?" Amelia shook her head. "No. She barely touched her food. Just looked tired. Sad." She hesitated. "Is she sick?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Doctors don't know yet." The answer was clipped, but Amelia caught the flicker of guilt in his eyes. He wasn't just afraid of illness. He was afraid of failing her. Around 2 a.m, Amelia noticed his hands trembling. She knew the signs: exhaustion, nerves, adrenaline wearing thin. "I'll get us coffee," she murmured, standing before he could protest. When she returned with 2 steaming styrofoam cups, Adrian accepted his reluctantly, as though the gesture unsettled him. He stared at it, then at her. "You don't have to do this," he said finally. Amelia managed a small smile. "Neither do you." He frowned. "She's my daughter." "And she's not mine," Amelia said softly. "But I stayed." The words hung there, challenging and tender all at once. Adrian's lips parted, as though to argue, but no sound came. Instead, he sipped the bitter coffee, his eyes lowering. Near dawn, a nurse invited them briefly into Lily's room. The girl looked fragile, her skin pale against the hospital sheets, tubes tracing delicate lines around her. Adrian sat at her bedside, holding her hand with reverence. His thumb brushed over her knuckles like a man clinging to the last thread of hope. Amelia hovered by the doorway, feeling like an intruder, until Lily stirred faintly, her fingers twitching. Not much, just enough. Her hand slipped from Adrian's grasp and brushed toward Amelia, weak but deliberate. Adrian froze. Slowly, his gaze shifted toward the waitress. Their eyes locked. Neither spoke, but the message was undeniable. Lily wanted her near. Amelia stepped forward, tentative, and took the girl's hand gently. "I'm here," she whispered. For the first, Adrian didn't resist her presence. He simply watched, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Back in the waiting room, exhaustion softened their edges. Amelia leaned back, eyes heavy, while Adrian's phone buzzed with missed calls and unread messages. For once, he ignored them. "You work nights?" he asked suddenly. She nodded, surprised by the question. "Double shifts, mostly. Tips keep the lights on." His brow furrowed. "And yet you stayed." Amelia let out a tired laugh. "You keep saying that like it's strange." "It is," Adrian said. His voice wasn't cold now. It was bewildered, almost vulnerable. "Most people don't." She studied him, seeing past the sharp suit and the commanding presence. "Maybe you've been around the wrong people." His lips quirked, Not quite a smile, but close. As dawn crept through the hospital windows, the two of them sat in rare, fragile peace. The anger, the suspicion, the pride, they hadn't disappeared, but they had softened, replaced by something else neither could name. Two people who never should have shared a world now sat bound together by a girl lying unconscious in a hospital bed. Amelia leaned her head against the wall, exhaustion pulling her into half-sleep. Adrian glanced at her, at the soft rise and fall of her breath, and for the briefest moment his heart clenched. It had been years since he'd felt anything but fear and control, and now, against his will, something unfamiliar sparked. Do you believe that sometimes we're meant to meet certain people? People who step into our lives in the most unlikely ways? Comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Morning light filtered weakly through the hospital windows, washing the sterile halls in pale gold. Nurses swapped shifts, doctors murmured updates, and life carried on as if the world hadn't cracked open in that one restaurant hours ago. For Amelia and Adrian, the night had blurred into something fragile but unforgettable. They'd shared coffee, silence, and the unspoken weight of worry. But with dawn came the heaviness of truth, the things that could no longer stay buried. Amelia slipped outside to catch her breath. The morning air was crisp, the faint scent of city smoke mingling with dew. She leaned against the cold stone wall, closing her eyes. Her chest ached, not just with fatigue, but with memories. When she opened her eyes, Adrian was there. He leaned against the wall a few feet away, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up. The billionaire armor looked thinner in the daylight. She moved in her sleep, he said quietly. Doctors say it's good. A response. Relief softened Amelia's shoulders. She'll fight. He studied her for a moment. Why do you believe that? Amelia hesitated, then sighed. Because I've seen it before. Adrian's brow furrowed. Seen what? She swallowed, her voice low. My brother. He was 10. Severe asthma. One night he collapsed on the living room floor. My mother panicked, froze. I was 14. I called 911, kept him breathing until they came. I thought I lost him. Her eyes glossed, but she forced herself to keep going. He pulled through, but he never forgave me for leaving later, when things got bad. I had to work, had to survive. He thought I abandoned him. Adrian said nothing at first. The hum of traffic filled the silence. Then, his voice softened in a way she hadn't heard before. You didn't abandon him. You saved him. Amelia's throat tightened. Tell him that. For a moment, vulnerability hung between them like a bridge half-built. Adrian turned away, staring at the horizon as if the city itself held his answers. I know what it's like. To be accused of leaving. To be seen as absent. Amelia glanced at him, surprised. He wasn't the kind of man to volunteer weakness. My wife, he continued, his voice strained. Lily's mother. Lily never forgave me for not being there. And maybe she's right. His jaw clenched, eyes hardening. I buried myself in work, built this empire, and all it did was build a wall between me and my daughter. Amelia's heart ached at the rawness in his words. Beneath the polished exterior, beneath the steel of a billionaire, was a man drowning in regret. You loved her, Amelia said softly. I failed her, Adrian snapped, then sighed, pressing a hand to his forehead. And now, I might lose Lily too. And all I'll have left is numbers. Empty numbers. Amelia hesitated, then reached out, just lightly, her fingers brushing his sleeve. You're here now. He didn't move, didn't look at her, but he didn't pull away either. The smallest gesture, but it meant everything. Back inside, the nurse approached with an update. Lily's vitals were stabilizing, but she'd need more tests. Adrian exhaled, shoulders sagging in relief. Amelia smiled faintly, until the nurse glanced between them. Family only, sir, she said pointedly, eyes landing on Amelia. The words stung. Amelia stepped back instinctively, nodding. Of course. I'll wait outside. Adrian's gaze flickered between the nurse and Amelia, torn. Finally, he nodded curtly. She stays nearby. It wasn't enough. Amelia felt the divide again, the reminder that she was an outsider, an intruder in a world where she didn't belong. As she turned away, her chest burned with an ache she couldn't name. Hours later, when Adrian emerged from Lily's room, Amelia was curled in a chair in the hall, arms crossed for warmth, eyes closed. She stirred as he approached, blinking up at him. She's stable, he said quietly. Relief loosened Amelia's breath. Thank God. They stood in silence, two weary souls orbiting the same fragile star. Finally, Adrian spoke. Why do you care this much? The question caught her off guard. Her lips parted, but no answer came. She cared because she couldn't not, because she saw a girl who looked like she had the whole world, but was still as lost as Amelia once was. Because she saw a man who needed someone to stay, even if he didn't realize it. But all she said was, because someone has to. Do you think past wounds make us stronger in love? Or do they make us afraid to open up again? Share your truth in the comments. The second night at St. Vincent's felt different from the first. The panic had dulled into waiting, the sharp edges of fear softened by cautious hope. Lily remained stable, her vitals steady, though she had yet to wake fully. For Amelia and Adrian, the hours stretched long, but they no longer sat in silence. Something had shifted after their confessions in the early morning. Their invisible walls cracked. And through the cracks, light had begun to slip in. Amelia returned from the vending machine with 2 cups of weak hospital coffee. She set one beside Adrian, who raised a brow. Still insisting I drink this sludge? She smirked faintly. Still insisting on staying awake? His lips twitched, a rare, fleeting smile. Fair enough. They sat side by side, sipping coffee that neither really wanted, but it gave them something to do with their hands, something normal in a world that felt anything but. Amelia leaned back, letting her eyes close for a moment. This might sound strange, but I don't hate it here. Not the beeping or the chairs, those are awful. But being here with her. With you. Adrian glanced at her, surprised. Most people avoid hospitals. I spent a lot of time in them growing up, she admitted. They became familiar. A reminder that even when things look hopeless, life keeps fighting. Adrian studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You see hope where most see despair. She shrugged, smiling faintly. Someone has to. Later, a nurse brought in sandwiches wrapped in plastic. Adrian eyed his suspiciously, as if corporate catering had spoiled him too much. Amelia laughed, a soft, genuine sound that surprised even her. What? Adrian asked, brow furrowing. You look like that sandwich just insulted you. It might have, he deadpanned, peeling back the wrapper. Amelia chuckled again, shaking her head. You're impossible. Something about the sound seemed to disarm him. His shoulders relaxed, and for the first time in years he laughed too. Quiet, short, but real. It startled them both. The sound echoed in the sterile room like something forbidden, yet desperately needed. When they checked on Lily later, Amelia sat by her bedside, humming softly. It wasn't a song she'd planned, just a tune her mother used to sing when the nights grew too heavy. Adrian lingered in the doorway, listening. For years he had filled his world with silence, with control, with the hum of business. But Amelia's voice, gentle, imperfect, human, brought something else entirely. You sing, he said quietly when she finished. Amelia flushed. Not well. Well enough, he replied. His tone was even, but his eyes lingered with something softer than she'd ever seen in him. Back in the waiting room, Adrian surprised her with a question. Why wait tables? You're smart. You're more than this. She tensed, defensive at first. You think it's less? His gaze softened. I think it's survival, but I don't think it's where you're meant to stay. Her breath caught. No one had ever said that to her. Not like that. Not with conviction. She looked down, fingers knotting together. I had dreams once. Nursing, maybe. Helping people. But life doesn't always care about dreams. Rent doesn't either. Adrian didn't push further, but the weight of his silence wasn't judgment. It was respect. As dawn broke again, Amelia dozed in her chair, head tilting dangerously. Adrian, without thinking, slid his jacket over her shoulders. When she stirred, blinking at the warmth, her eyes met his. For a long, charged moment, neither looked away. Thank you, she whispered. Adrian only nodded, his throat tight. He wanted to say more, but words felt fragile, like glass in his mouth. By the third day, the waiting room no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like theirs. Their little world of vending machine coffee, whispered confessions, and silent prayers. When Adrian's phone buzzed with another urgent business call, he silenced it. Amelia noticed. You're missing things, she said softly. I'm not, he replied, his gaze steady. For the first time, I'm exactly where I should be. Amelia's heart stumbled at the words. And in that quiet moment, something unspoken but undeniable flickered between them. Not love, not yet, but the spark of something that could become it. Do you believe that love can grow in unexpected places, like hospital waiting rooms, where pain and hope collide? Share your thoughts below. For 3 days, Amelia and Adrian carved out a fragile rhythm in the hospital. The world outside blurred, bills, boardrooms, gossip, all irrelevant compared to Lily's slow, steady fight. It might have been the beginnings of something rare, but fragile things break easily. On the 4th morning, the waiting room stirred with sharp heels and sharper perfume. A woman swept in, her designer coat slung over one arm, her lips pressed into a polished smile that didn't reach her eyes. Adrian, she said smoothly. Adrian stiffened. Victoria. Amelia froze. She knew the type instantly. Elegant, rich, belonging to Adrian's world in a way Amelia never could. Victoria's eyes flicked over Amelia, dismissing her in an instant. And this is? Before Adrian could speak, Amelia found her voice. Amelia, I was there when Lily collapsed. I stayed. Victoria's brows lifted. How noble. The word dripped with condescension. When Victoria stepped out to take a call, Amelia turned to Adrian. Who is she? My business partner, he said shortly. Too shortly. Amelia's chest tightened. She looked like more than that. Adrian exhaled sharply. She isn't. But this isn't. Pinching the bridge of his nose. You don't understand this world. The word stung worse than a slap. Amelia's voice trembled. You're right. I don't. But I understand Lily. And I thought maybe I understood you. Adrian's jaw tightened. His silence was louder than words. That night, Amelia sat by Lily's bed while Adrian took a call in the hallway. She whispered softly, stroking the girl's hand. Your dad loves you more than he knows how to say. Don't give up on him. When she stood to leave, she heard voices outside. Adrian's low, controlled tone, and Victoria's sharper one. You can't let people like her linger, Victoria hissed. A waitress clinging to your family? It's pathetic. You know how this will look. Adrian didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched. Too long. When Amelia stepped out, he was standing there, silent, conflicted, but silent. Her chest burned. You let her speak about me like that? Amelia. No, she cut him off, her voice breaking. You could have said one word, just one, and you didn't. The fight moved to the waiting room, harsh whispers slicing the quiet. You think I care what Victoria or anyone else thinks? Adrian demanded. You cared enough not to defend me, Amelia shot back. His face twisted with frustration. Do you know what's at stake? Billions. Thousands of jobs. My entire company could... And what about your daughter? Amelia snapped. Or is she just another deal to you? The words hit like knives. Adrian's face went pale, fury and pain warring in his eyes. Get out, he said finally, voice like ice. Amelia's breath caught. She searched his face, hoping for a crack, for some sign he didn't mean it. But his jaw was set, his gaze unyielding. Her chest shattered. She grabbed her bag, blinking back tears, and walked out of the hospital. Outside, the night was cruelly beautiful, stars glinting above a city that didn't care. Amelia walked aimlessly, her steps heavy, her heart heavier. She told herself she should have known better. Men like Adrian didn't choose women like her. Billionaire CEOs didn't keep waitresses by their side. But the worst pain wasn't losing him. It was Lily. Leaving that little girl who'd reached for her hand in the hospital bed felt like tearing her soul in two. Back inside, Adrian sat alone in the waiting room, fists clenched. The echo of Amelia's words, or is she just another deal to you, gnawed at him. He told himself he'd done the right thing, that pride and reputation mattered. But the hollow ache in his chest told another story. For years he'd lived behind walls of steel and power. Amelia had breached those walls, and now, with one careless moment of silence, he'd driven her away. For the first time since his wife's death, Adrian put his head in his hands and let the weight crush him. Have you ever lost someone important not because of lies, but because of silence? What do you think hurts more, words said or words unsaid? Share your thoughts below. The city was alive that night, but for Amelia every sound felt muted. Sirens wailing, neon signs buzzing, laughter spilling from bars. She walked the streets like a ghost, replaying the hospital scene until it hollowed her out. His silence, her anger, Lily's face. She told herself to forget, to let it end there, but the ache in her chest refused to let go. Back in her small apartment, Amelia dropped her bag on the couch and sank to the floor. Bills scattered across the table, reminders of the life she had to return to. Late rent, overdue utilities, the grind she'd tried to escape for just a few nights. She pressed her palms to her face, whispering, "Why did I stay? Why did I care?" But she knew. Lily's fragile fingers had reached for hers. Adrian's eyes had cracked open just enough to show the man he could be. She had seen him. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, but the father, the widower, the man drowning in guilt. And despite everything, she missed him. Her phone buzzed. For a moment, her heart leapt, but it was just a reminder from her landlord. No call, no message, no Adrian. She whispered into the empty room, "Was I ever anything to him?" At the hospital, Adrian sat by Lily's bed, but his thoughts weren't on her shallow breaths. They were on Amelia, the way she had touched Lily's hand, the way her laughter had softened the sterile waiting room, the way her eyes had looked at him not as a billionaire, but as a man. Victoria's words echoed in his mind, venomous. A waitress clinging to your family. Pathetic. And worse, the way he hadn't defended Amelia. The silence that had cost him more than any failed deal ever could. Adrian stood and paced the room, fists clenched. He'd built an empire by making bold decisions, by never hesitating. But when it came to Amelia, he had faltered. He had let fear rule him. He looked at his daughter, her fragile chest rising and falling. "What if she doesn't forgive me?" he whispered, his voice breaking. He wasn't sure if he meant Lily or Amelia. Near midnight, Lily stirred again, her lips parting. Adrian leaned close. "Dad." His heart lurched. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here." Her voice was barely audible. "Where is she?" Adrian froze. "Who?" "Amelia." The name was a dagger and a balm all at once. His daughter, unconscious for days, had remembered the waitress who stayed. And in that fragile whisper, Adrian heard the truth. Amelia mattered. Not just to him, but to Lily. He squeezed her hand, his throat tight. "I'll find her." 2 days later, Amelia stood at the diner counter, apron tied, notepad in hand. Back to routine. Back to pretending. Her coworker nudged her. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Amelia forced a smile. "Just tired." But every clang of a coffee cup, every murmur of conversation, brought back the memory of Adrian sitting across from her with hospital coffee, finally laughing, finally human. A question gnawed at her. If he came back, if he asked, would I forgive him? She didn't know the answer. That evening, Adrian stood outside the diner, staring through the glass at Amelia weaving between tables. His heart thundered with something he hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not of failure, not of loss, but of rejection. He could turn away, walk back to his empire, pretend the waitress had never breached his walls. Or he could step inside and risk everything. Not money, not reputation, but his heart. Adrian took a breath, squared his shoulders, and pushed the door open. The bell jingled. Amelia looked up. Their eyes met. Silence stretched across the room, heavy with every unsaid word. Adrian crossed to her slowly, ignoring the curious eyes of the other patrons. He stopped just short of her, his voice low but steady. "I was a coward." Amelia blinked, startled. He continued, each word deliberate. When you needed me to stand for you, I stayed silent. I've lived my whole life protecting an image, protecting control. But the truth is, I don't want control anymore. Not if it costs me you. Her throat tightened. Adrian. I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said, his eyes raw. But I need it. For Lily. For me. For us. If there could ever be an us. Amelia's breath hitched. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She wanted to believe. And in that suspended moment, she realized the choice wasn't just his. It was hers. If you were Amelia, would you forgive Adrian or walk away forever? What does forgiveness mean when love is on the line? Comment your truth below. The diner felt too small for Amelia's racing heart. Adrian's words hung in the air like fragile glass, shimmering with risk and possibility. His eyes, usually hard, calculating, were stripped bare. For a long moment, Amelia said nothing. The clatter of dishes, the murmur of customers, the hum of the coffee machine all faded into silence. Finally, she whispered, "If I forgive you, it won't be because of what you can give me. It'll be because of what you already gave." Adrian's brow furrowed. "And what's that?" "Your truth," she said simply. "The part of you no one else gets to see." Before Adrian could reply, his phone buzzed. He glanced down, and his eyes widened. "It's the hospital." Amelia's breath caught. He answered quickly. "Yes, this is Adrian." A pause. His face softened, breaking into something Amelia had never seen. Pure relief. "She's awake." Amelia's hand flew to her mouth. Adrian grabbed her other hand without hesitation. "Come with me." She hesitated only a heartbeat before nodding. The hospital room was bathed in soft afternoon light. Lily lay propped up against pillows, pale but awake, her eyes heavy yet alert. "Dad," she murmured as Adrian rushed to her side, clasping her hand. "I'm here," he whispered, his voice thick. "I'm so sorry I wasn't before. But I'm here now. Always." Lily's eyes shifted toward Amelia, standing uncertainly at the door. "You came back." Tears blurred Amelia's vision. She stepped closer. "Of course I did. You scared us all sleeping this long." A faint smile tugged at Lily's lips. "I knew you wouldn't leave." Adrian looked between them, his daughter, his unlikely anchor, and the woman who had bridged the chasm between them. That night, the three of them sat together, not in sterile silence, but in something warmer. Amelia read aloud from an old magazine she found, making Lily laugh softly. Adrian listened, the sound filling places in him that had long been hollow. At one point, Lily drifted back to sleep, her hand still resting in Amelia's. Adrian watched silently, then said, "She trusts you more than anyone, even me." Amelia glanced at him. "She doesn't trust titles or money. She trusts hearts. And yours is still beating, Adrian. Don't waste it hiding." His throat tightened. For years no one had spoken to him that way. Not board members, not partners, not so-called friends. Only Amelia. The next morning, as Amelia prepared to leave, Adrian caught her by the arm. "Wait!" She turned, uncertain. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Her heart stumbled. "Not what you think," he said quickly, a flicker of nervousness breaking through his composure. "This was my wife's. She gave it to me to hold for Lily when she turned 18. But I think she'd want me to give it now. As a promise." He opened it. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet, simple but beautiful. Adrian's voice softened. not a promise of wealth or protection. A promise that I will never be silent again. Not with you, not with her. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as he clasped it gently around her wrist. Later, Lily stirred again, her small voice filling the quiet room. "Daddy?" Adrian froze. The word, spoken so softly, so vulnerably, echoed through him. Back to the night when Amelia had called and said his daughter was unconscious. The night everything changed. "Yes, sweetheart," he whispered, holding her hand. "Don't let her go," Lily murmured, her gaze drifting toward Amelia before sleep claimed her again. Adrian turned to Amelia, his heart full, his decision already made. "I won't," he said firmly. "Not ever." Weeks later, the hospital stay was behind them. Lily grew stronger, her laughter returning. Amelia found herself drawn into their lives, not as a guest, not as an outsider, but as something more. One evening, as the three of them sat on Adrian's balcony overlooking the city skyline, Amelia turned to him. "I still don't understand why me." Adrian's answer was simple. "Because when everything else fell apart, you stayed. Not for money, not for power, just for us." Her chest swelled with emotion. "And you? Why me, when you could have anyone?" He smiled, softer than she'd ever seen. "Because anyone else isn't you." Amelia leaned into him, his arm wrapping around her, the city lights blazing below.
Lily's laughter drifted from inside, bright and unbroken. And for the first time in years, for all three of them, home wasn't a place or a title. It was here, in this unexpected, impossible love that had somehow found them in a hospital waiting room. Do you believe love finds us when we least expect it, even in our darkest hours? Share your story in the comments. And if this journey touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more.